So, before going into detail, let me introduce our esteemed speakers. First of all, I'd like to welcome our Professor Tang, a professor of international management of University of Applied Management in Germany. She pioneered the Victory model about which we will learn later today. And in her research, she focuses on creativity systems, inventive processes, team creativity, human AI co-creation, and cross-cultural studies. Welcome.
Hello.
Later, we will have Mr. Athanasios Karalopoulos, a team leader from a European Commission, from from Digital Transformation of Industry, in Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship, and Small Medium Enterprises, DigiGrow for short. He has a special focus on digitalization as an enabler for the functioning of the single market. Welcome. And last but not least, Mr. Thomas Guillet, who works in beta.gouv.fr since 2017. He supports national and local governments in France by deploying rules as code and lean startup approaches to deliver better public services. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. After those three highly interesting presentations, we'll have Q&A session and then some closing remark. But before that, let me explain you why we talk about multidisciplinary teams in digital-ready policymaking. So first of all, what is digital-ready policymaking? It rethinks how we develop. No, not. Thank you. It rethinks how we develop and draft policies. Please, next slide.
There is no next slide. I think we have a technical issue. This is
it. This is it.
Unfortunately.
Thank you so much. So it rethinks how we develop, draft, and implement policies in digital age. It seeks to bridge the gap between policy design and implementation. And multidisciplinary teams are an enabler for this digital-ready policymaking. They facilitate the creation of policies that are not only legally sound, but also technologically robust. So to design these digital-ready policies, teams must consider various aspects, such as user centricity, data reuse, legal drafting, and so much more. So one person is unable to cover all of those aspects. We need multidisciplinary teams, which are composed of different profiles that can weigh in on different points. They bring collective knowledge and skills from the start of the policymaking process that can lead to better policies that are easier to implement. So this is a very brief introduction. And now I will pass the floor to Professor Tang, who will speak more about preparing the multidisciplinary teams. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I will share my slides. And you can see the slide correctly, right?
Yes, we can see correctly.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks a lot for the invitation. It's great to be here because today you will listen to not only theory but also practice. And as a researcher, I'm really thankful for the
Sorry,
chance.
we can see this presenter mode. Oh, now it's correct.
Okay, so it's like now it's correct.
Now it's correct.
Okay, so as a creativity and innovation researcher, I'm particularly interested in the question of how to leverage the creative potential of multidisciplinary teams and how to translate the diversity into innovative outputs. But these questions are very broad. And today in this 20-minute talk, I will only focus on one specific topic, how to prepare multidisciplinary teams for innovative tasks. So we're talking about teams. What's your experience with teams? What does a team mean to you? For some, it might be like this: toll, ein anderer macht es. This is in German, and in English, it means great, someone else will do that. Or some of you might have different interpretation experience, like this: together, everyone achieves more. That's great. That's great if this is always the case. But some of you might have experienced the opposite, like so much stress. It goes so slow. It would have been faster if I did it alone. So, what would be a realistic interpretation of teams? I thought of like this one. Teams means together we can achieve more. I like it. First of all, because of the focus of the we, collective thinking, instead of I, the egocentric thinking. I also like it because of the word that I marked in red, the can. The can means 50-50 chance of success. It can be, but it can also not be. So, under what conditions can we translate diversity into innovation, and under which conditions we cannot? And how can we move more to the direction of can? This is the focus of my talk today. But before we move on with multidisciplinary teams, I'd like to share some theories with you and also to clarify our communication languages. What do we mean by groups and teams? If we want to start with the topic, we need to start with an expression. We call it congregation of people.
Sorry again. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
The mode of the had changed. Yes, we can see the
Okay.
slide now.
Strange. Okay, strange. Now it's okay. No?
Now it's okay. Yes.
Ah, okay. So the congregation of people usually is a large group of people. For example, a large group of roaring crowd of Bayern Munich football fans. They are watching football game in the Alliance Arena. The football fans gather together because of the common interest, but they don't have the common goal. They don't have the shared responsibility. They just go there for fun.
Sorry, the view is changed again.
Ah, so what's wrong? What's wrong? Now
Now it's okay.
I've done nothing. Okay, so let's look at teams. Teams are different. They are closer. Ne? They share. They perceive a common goal, but they have little participation in responsibility. For example, today we gather here as a group. We have the common goal to get a better understanding of multidisciplinary teams, but we only have little participation in responsibility. For example, our responsibility is to follow the rule of the organizer of the webinar, and then if we want, we can choose to take more responsibility. For example, we can share our experience, we can take an active participation in discussion, and then we can do a little bit more. But we are talking about team. Teams are more, okay? Teams, they not only have common goals, they use the goals to direct their efforts. To direct their efforts, they have shared responsibilities. As we just now heard that somebody alone cannot achieve a task. Thereby, we form a group and we divide the tasks and responsibilities, and the team members are interdependent from each other. And our goal is to create something bigger. What we mean to achieve the synergy, which means 1 + 1 is bigger than 2. This is what we mean by teams. To summarize, from aggregation of people to groups to teams, the degree of interdependence and the degree of performance, the level of performance, both increase. And now to clarify is also, you have heard of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, or transdisciplinary. What are the relationships between them? Why is it important also to know more about this? Okay, so when we talk about multidisciplinary, or I call it multidisciplinary approach to bring people together, we mean that we combine expertise and knowledge without integration, and team members work independently. But there is another approach we call interdisciplinary approach. In this approach, we synthesizes and integrates knowledge. Team members work collaboratively to complete tasks. Particularly nowadays, we have the new interdisciplinary areas, which we call biochemistry, bioinformatics, or cognitive economics. These are the results of interdisciplinary collaboration. But at a higher level, with a higher degree of sympathy, we have the transdisciplinary approach, which means uh, the transcendence of the boundaries of disciplines through intensive collaboration. And the goal is even bigger, to create new knowledge system to really bring changes. So at the European Commission level, because you serves the goal of European Union to have a united Europe where people in regions thrive, usually you are dealing with problems that are complex and demanding. Therefore, most of teams at the European Commission, according to my observation, I've studied some of your teams and projects at the website. Actually, you call yourselves multidisciplinary teams, but you are actually working through the transdisciplinary approach.
And
Okay, so this,
the view
huh?
changed again.
Oh, it's very strange. And now
It's okay.
it's okay. Okay. So multidisciplinary teams, but we should be aware that you bring much more diversity here. In parallel, in addition to your interdisciplinary diversity. For example, you bring the so-called functional diversity, which means different educational background, functional background, and the tenure, the length that you are in the organization. And everybody brings the demographic diversity, gender, age, ethnicity, and there are more. You also bring psychological diversity, different personality, attitudes, values, motivations, thinking styles. And this breadth of diversity makes the multidisciplinary teams very fascinating because it presents both opportunities and challenges for team performance. So now it's worthwhile that we look into the diversity. What are the positive side? What are the negative side? What are the risks and challenges? This is what we call double-edged effect of diversity. It's like a sword, had both sides. It cut in either direction. So what are the positive sides, the potentials? The first, of course, because of diversity, we provide a large pool of resources, different knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences that increase the chance that we can really create something new. And the second, because of our diversity, we can stimulate creative thinking. We can prevent teams from moving to premature consensus that we agree on each other immediately. Huh? Sorry. That's great. So how about science says? Why do we need science? Because science is systematic, um, very analytical analysis of different teams. And the science meta-analysis prove that. Meta-analysis of hundreds of studies about team and team performance prove that there is a positive relationship between interdisciplinary diversity and team creativity, but this relationship is weak, positive but weak. What does it mean? It means it works, but many other factors also influence the team performance, such as creativity. And what are the negative side, particularly in relation to team creativity? The first, diversity can lead to conflicts, task conflict, and very strong negative emotionality. Okay, stress, and so on and so forth. It can also cause to even relationship conflict. The people hate each other. They don't want to see each other. They don't want to work with each other at all. Or cross-functional diversity is positively related to stress and negatively related to cohesiveness, which means the higher the diversity of the team, the more likely there will be stress and the more likely the cohesiveness of the team is lower. And it's also a study, recent study about teams when we are targeting something creative, innovative, and they come up with different ideas, and they observe that teams we are together, they tend to prefer practical ideas instead of original ideas, what they call practicality effect. And there are also other teams, they highly value harmony, and they avoid conflicts, and then they just fall in a state of lazy shared consensus, and then they just stop to do things differently because they feel so comfortable. They think harmony is their priority. And there's also the very common phenomenon in multicultural teams, the intergroup bias. We in group are better than them. we engineers are better than artists. They are chaotic. And the artist said, oh, we artists, we are better than the engineers. They are like machines. No? They don't know emotions, whatever. So these are only suggestive. There are longer lists, like I select the ones that closely related to team creativity. So the crucial question is, so how should we do? How should we manage the diversity tactfully that we can optimize the positive side and try to avoid the negative side? For this purpose, I developed the so-called victory model. Victory model is a teaming model with a focus on two things. The first, how to bring members of diverse backgrounds together. And the second, how to prepare them. So we start with team. Of course, you bring the people together through team building, through team activities. You should hold them together. So let's look at what are the enablers of a functioning team. Strong commitment, shared responsibility, common goals. These are like clues that bring the people together. And trust, autonomy, freedom. This means you should create a climate that provide trust and autonomy and freedom to the people. Otherwise people cannot create. And of course, very essential is effective way of collaboration and communication. Through this, we can bring the people together and make them work. And a
And the
very,
view changed.
oh my God, now
Yes, it's okay.
so now let's come to the vision. Vision is very important. It's like the common goal, the big goal that the teams want to achieve. Let's go back to 1980s. At that time, it's not commonplace that computers are everywhere. Computers belong to big labs for experiment. But Bill Gates already had a very clear vision to put a computer on every desk and in every home. This is the future that he envisioned. And he used this vision to organize the people who share the same goal and set up Microsoft. Microsoft is till today still one of the most innovative company of the world. And Steve Jobs did the similar thing. He went to the ex Pepsi executive John Sculley and asked him, "Hey, John, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your time, or do you want to join me and change the world?" And he successfully uh, recruited Sculley to join Apple. So use vision to set up your team, to put people together, inspire them, and lead them through challenges. No? And of course, you should also prepare your team psychologically, emotionally, attitudinally, and to your innovative tasks. So very important is openness. You should create a climate that is open and also prepare your members to open to new ideas, different ways of thinking, and also open environment also provides the opportunity to fail, to create a sort of failure culture. And here, of course, a link to the team building. This will only happen if you provide a trustworthy, autonomous, and safe environment. Otherwise, the people will not be open. And here you should also be aware of cultural differences. Some culture they are indirect, some culture are direct. Direct negative feedback. For example, in German culture, in Western culture is more often than Asian culture. In Japan, China, or Korean, people avoid to do that because it will cause people to lose face. It will be interpreted as confrontation. So be aware of the cultural differences here. And also to build trust. In some culture, they build trust through personal contact, through relationship. They go to lunch together, they go karaoke together before they do business. In Confucius culture, for example. In Western culture, they focus on the so-called cognitive trust. We have the work relationship, and then just we build a trust at our work. There is a very clear separate between work and the private. and should be aware of the diversity of the different cultural groups. And risk taking is related to your team climate, is related to the atmosphere of the openness if you have created and enabled in the team. So basically, people are more ready to take risks if they feel safe. If they feel that they will be not laughed at, if they come up with different ideas, they will be not criticized if they make failures, and they will be praised in the opposite if they try something new. So risk taking is very closely related to the open and safe climate of your team. That's not enough. You should also create chances that the team members can create some small wins. They can see the progress they made, and you can celebrate each steps they make. So together you can strengthen the self-efficacy, the self-confidence of each team members, and also the self-efficacy, the self-confidence of the team. And then the team members and all the team can say, yes, I can, each individual. And yes, we as a whole team, we are so cool. We are so competent. It's a lot of fun to work in this team. And together, yes, we can create something. So this is like on this side is the more the motivational, attitudinal, and the psychological side, the subtle side of the uh, members. And we need more. We need the more hard side, the cognitive side. Okay, the starting point of creativity innovation is ideas, and the ideation is the process that you come up with ideas, you evaluate ideas, and select some ideas and further develop that. And as team leaders, you should provide the opportunity. At first, you should provide support for the ideation of your team. Secondly, if you feel that you need some support, some new technologies and resources, you should provide this kind of support. There are enough, for example, workshops, even about brainstorming, there are enough workshops. And brainstorming, there are also other forms like brainwriting, brainwalking, or electronic brainwriting, whatever. There are techniques and the tools that can facilitate ideation process. And only ideas is not enough. Teams should also learn how to creative combine different knowledge, skills, and ideas to create something new. This is like Steve Jobs very honestly, but also correctly say creativity is just connecting things. Let's look at the iPhone, no? The first smartphone of the world, which was so revolutionary. But if you look at each part, each component and technology, they were all existing already. Touch screen, internet, camera, they are all there. And iPhone just managed to create very meaningful synergy to bring existing technology together and create new purposes and new products to serve to even optimize the service and the function of the iPhone. This is the meaning of the creative combination. So now I move to the last slide. Last but one more thing, teaming is a way to get work done while figuring out how to do it better, is executing the learning at the same time. So this is my last slide is I add learning to the victory model. I call it victory model 2.0, the latest version. And with this model, I hope the victory model and the commitment to lifelong learning lead your teams from one victory to the next. Thanks a lot. And I will circulate the slide with you, and you can see the basic mentoring readings, and this is my contact. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And now we will go back to our presentations. And now, Athanasios, please.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to participate and give a short presentation, but at the same time to share our experience on from the Commission side. My name is Athanasios Karalopoulos. I work for the European Commission since 2013. And for the last 3 years, I work for the department, for the DG, as we call them, which is responsible for the single market policy, the policy that has as a goal to facilitate the mobility of citizens and businesses across the EU. So it is the DG responsible for the single market, the DG responsible for the industrial policy, but also for policies for SMEs, where we have a very special focus. I'm mentioning this because I would like uh, to say that this department of the Commission produces a lot of many policies. It has a lot of policy work to do, and the vast majority of these policies, either amendments or new policies, they have digital aspects. The digital aspects are very visible. I would say in all of them. I work for a unit which is called Digital and Transformation of Industry. So we are responsible for some policies. Obviously with, let's say, more, let's say, where the digital side is even more, let's say, visible, but I hope that the examples that I try to use in order to share our experience and try to bring, let's say, the practice close to what Professor Tang shared as the theory from the Commission side. I hope it will be interesting, and it may also trigger some further discussion. So the examples that I will use to share our experience and the way of working in the context of multidisciplinary teams at the Commission, at least in DigiGrow, based on my experience, is an example from the work that has been done to create a new regulation for related to short-term accommodation services. I think the term that we all know is Airbnb properties. So Airbnb apartments, Airbnb houses. So it is a regulation that tries to harmonize some rules at European level related to the renting of this kind of properties. I will close this introduction just by saying that this workshop is about digital ready policy making. And I would like to share with you that I'm not, let's say, by my academic background many years ago. So I'm an IT engineer who, after joining the Commission, progressively moved away from, let's say, the purely IT units of the Commission. I know that in the participants there are some colleagues, and took the decision to join policy units. So I will share some of my experience, but mostly being an IT guy, let's say a former IT guy, who joined a team of policy officers, of legal officers, who have started to work with people coming from, let's say, the other side, not many years ago. So that will be the purpose of this presentation. If we can go to the next slide, just to give you more information very briefly about the context. So we all know, we all use most probably this kind of services. So apartments, houses that we rent via online platforms like Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, but also there are many smaller platforms. And let's say this situation, this new market, which represents nearly the 1/4 of the supply of tourism accommodation has created a lot of, let's say, opportunities, but at the same time, a lot of challenges and problems at local, regional, and national level. So, the member states proposed and the stakeholders and the Commission introduced a new regulation that tried to put together some common rules at European level related to the registration of this kind of, let's say, of properties, but also related to the data that the online platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com share with competent authorities for better policy making or for other reasons. If we can go to the next slide. So the purpose of this new regulation, of this proposal, which was adopted more than a year ago by the Commission, and it will be now adopted by all the institutions in the coming weeks. The main objectives are to harmonize and improve the framework of the data sharing between the STR platforms, the platforms like Airbnb, and competent authorities at national, regional, or local level in all countries. So it is a regulation indeed, it is a new policy, it is a regulation, it is a strong, let's say, legislative act, but which also have a very strong digital angle. So I hope that it fits to the purpose of our discussion. And the next slide is the last one about the context. Just a couple of words. So what does this new regulation introduces? First of all, some common rules about the registration of the owners of these apartments and their properties, some common rules about the data that should be exchanged between these platforms and competent authorities to be used for specific purposes. And I would close by saying that this regulation, of course, has many articles that are of purely legal nature, but also there are many articles that have many technological, let's say, components. They introduce many technological components. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Now, why did we have to introduce a team, a multidisciplinary team? I hope that what I will say, let's say it applies for the majority of similar work that my colleagues at the Commission, at least, they do. So here I present the policy making cycle for every new legislative initiative like the one that I referred to. So as you can see, at the center of everything is the input and the consultations that we have with all the different stakeholder groups that are impacted or can contribute to this new initiative. So this is how everything starts, but also this is how everything finishes. And as we can see, there are four main phases: preparation, where we prepare the new, let's say, the new legislative initiative, the adoption phase, the implementation, and then the application. The work that we have done for the example that I used, it's only the first half. So what we have done up to now, we have prepared, so we prepared this regulation. So we introduced a team to prepare that regulation, but also that team was also responsible for the adoption of the regulation by all the institutions. So as I said, this regulation will enter into force in the coming weeks. And what we also did was that we organized the impact assessment, which is a necessary and mandatory step in order to present, to describe the problem, to identify the alternative solutions, to analyze the preferable solution, but also to estimate different types of impacts on environment from the economic point of view, social point of view, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, there are many different types of activities involved. So during the stakeholder input, we need to work together with colleagues who can organize stakeholder consultations, or colleagues who can process the results coming from the stakeholder consultations. During the impact assessment, we also need economists. We do need policy officers. We do need legal officers. Of course, we do need people with digital background. And then during the adoption phase, we also need colleagues from many, let's say, with diverse backgrounds in order to prepare a regulation and to participate to negotiations covering all different perspectives. So for that reason, we had to create a multidisciplinary team with many profiles in order to cover the preparation phase of the regulation, the impact assessment, the conduction of the impact assessment, and the negotiations with the other institutions. I think this is something that applies for all regulations that are prepared by the European Commission. In our specific case, there are some examples, some regulations where that phase lasts a few months, maybe a year. But there are some other regulations where that phase is longer. So in our case, for our regulation, the public consultation lasted 6 months approximately. The preparation of the impact assessment, again, took us almost half a year. The preparation of the proposal was again 6 months, and the negotiation ran over the last 1 year, since beginning of last year. So what I wanted to say is, in this example, we are talking about a multidisciplinary team, which of course composed of many diverse profiles, but also we are talking about a multidisciplinary team, and I think this is a characteristic throughout the Commission usually, that has a long duration. So the mission, it's not something that can be accomplished in few months. So it is a team that has to work together for several months, maybe few years, to cover all these different phases. And also it is equally, I think, useful to say that not all the different profiles are involved in the same way at the same level throughout this process. So some types of profiles are needed during the initial phase, then some other profiles are needed later. There are some profiles who are contributing throughout this life cycle. So we are talking about a team that the team members, they do not work all together with the same volume from the beginning until the end. And I don't know if these two characteristics, the long duration of this team and the varying level of involvement per profile, it's something that makes a difference when we talk about multidisciplinary teams. And I would be very happy to hear the opinion from Professor Tang about these two special characteristics of a multidisciplinary team at the Commission preparing for a new regulation: long duration and varying level of involvement per profile. If we can go to the next slide, Professor Tang talked about different types of diversity in multidisciplinary teams. I think in our case, and I believe from my little experience, that applies in the majority of the initiatives, I think a typical multidisciplinary team involved in the preparation of a policy with, let's say, digital elements ticks the boxes for all the different types of diversity that Professor Tag presented in her presentation. So indeed, we cover the functional diversity. We have functional diversity: policy officers, legal officers, digital experts like myself, or at least we use the term experts, people who can contribute from the IT perspective. Economists, statisticians are only few, not all, but are, let's say, the main profiles that were involved in our team, and we work together since 2019. So we are talking about since 2021. So we are talking about 3 full years, including, let's say, the inception phase. And for example, saying legal officers, it's not only of the same type, because we have legal officers focused on GDPR aspects, and we have legal officers focusing on single market aspects. So really there are some subcategories which usually play a role in our communication and also in how we work together. But the functional diversity is not only related to our role in the professional context. Also, it depends on our policy domain. As I said, we had policy officers coming from the single market, other from tourism, other from the digital services. Also, we have differences from the academic background. Some of us lawyers, some of us are engineers. And also, we have a functional diversity related to the, let's say, to the status of our employee status. Some of us, we are officers, staff. We have also in the team middle senior managers. Some of us have a permanent engagement. Some of us have a temporary engagement with our employer, with the European Commission. So really there is a very wide functional diversity inside our team. But also there is a demographic diversity. Of course, female, male, all age groups and many nationalities. This is, I think, typical for a European organization. And I will close by the psychological diversity that Professor presented as well. And I will only concentrate on the motivation. So indeed, some of us had as a main motivation to solve the problem. Some of us were mainly focused on the estimation of the impact of the preferable solution, economic impact, social impact, environmental impact. So, and that was very clear during, for example, the impact assessment. Some of us wanted to protect certain types of stakeholders, SMEs, for example, or platforms. There were also some team members who were providing a service, so like a consultant. So really, they know the mission, they stick to the mission, but they have more a client-based, let's say, approach. And also we have some colleagues who, at the end, they care about the quality of the product, the regulation that we produce. So I wanted to present this, let's say, the different types of diversity, because I think they show also how relevant this discussion and the model that the Professor Tang presented is relevant, how relevant it is with a typical team at the European Commission preparing a new regulation. And the next slide. Now, which were the challenges that we faced? First of all, terminology challenges. When I was following the presentation, I think there is a one-to-one mapping between all these challenges and, let's say, the content of the presented by the professor. So terminology, clear. It was very difficult myself to understand sometimes my colleagues coming from the legal domain were using their own jargon and the other way around. Also, and allow me to highlight this, to underline this, we need to work collectively in practice. So in order to prepare a new regulation, we need to work collectively, not independently. But it's true, and I show that Professor Tang presented let's say three types: multidisciplinary teams, interdisciplinary, and cross-disciplinary. I think that we need to work as an interdisciplinary team. This is the challenge, because in practice we work as a multidisciplinary team. So this is a challenge that we have that we had to tackle. There is clearly a lack of understanding, which also a lack of understanding, which sometimes is linked with the underestimation of the complexity. And I will talk about myself being the IT guy who works together with policy. Many times, whenever I try to say something, the response is, okay, we do not understand. And that happens even if, let's say, the technical terms come first from, let's say, colleagues with non-technical background. So really, the lack of understanding is something which is present almost every day. And professor explained why we have conflicts, why we have frustration. That was also one of our challenges. We had differences in the prioritization, especially if we have resources who belong to different units. And don't forget that we have to work together over the last 3 years, so it's impossible all of them to be available whenever this is needed. In a multidisciplinary team, usually not all profiles are available uh, uh, all the time, but usually there are no backups, so you have dependencies, you have delays. For example, if the economist is not available because there is another priority, there is no backup usually, so we have a dependency and there are delays, so we have frustration. And I will close by discrimination. What does this mean? It means that depending on the phase, for example, during the initial phase, people who collect the input from the stakeholders, let's say this is the priority, and all the other profiles, they were not listened so much. When we enter the preparation of the legal text, then it is the legal officers that, of course, have the experience and they know how to prepare a very sound legal text. So this is the priority, and issues that may be brought by other profiles, for example, related to digital aspects, they do not look such a priority. So there is, let's say, a discrimination depending on the phase that we were, but also depending on the priority of that particular phase vis-a-vis, let's say, input coming from different aspects. And the next slide, which will be the last one, but we didn't have only challenges, we also experience, and I think this is why we are also here today, some very concrete benefits. As Professor said, I think that was the first message, we could consider many different aspects, legal, economic, technological. So working all together, we tried at least not to forget some aspects that had to be taken into consideration. Also, challenges were early identified, including the ones related to implementation. So I contributed with some challenges from the implementation of the technological elements of the regulation. Some other colleagues from the economic, from the legal, links with other regulations. This is really something which has a lot of value. The quality of the results, it was much higher from the beginning. Also, the fact that we were colleagues coming from different domains, policy domains, technological domains, academic domains, it helped us to address easily some domain-specific issues or even some country-specific issues. I remember because in France, this market is very well developed, in Greece as well. And I remember that colleagues with French nationality or colleagues with Greek nationality, they contacted directly the colleagues at national level, and we made some progress, which helped a lot. So this is something that we took advantage during the preparation and even now. And last but not least, and here I will speak about myself, after 3 years, we really acknowledge the value of diversity. I will close by saying that as I represent, let's say, a group of colleagues who the last few years took the decision to move from, let's say, the comfort zone, a pure IT team, to a team consisting mostly of policy officers, legal officers, and so on and so forth. I was a bit skeptical. You know, I had some questions. Why do we need so many profiles for a digital policy who do not have a digital background? Now I'm convinced. I'm convinced and I acknowledge the fact that we have to work in the context of multidisciplinary teams and we have to take advantage of this diversity. And I think this is something that can be useful for all of us because the work continues and the new cycle will start again for another regulation. I will stop here. I think this is my last slide. Yes, lessons learned, collaboration and communication, indeed, team spirit, the role of the team coordinator is key. It's not easy. I was not the team coordinator for this particular initiative, but I do agree with this statement that was also done by Professor Tang, and openness. It didn't happen on purpose. I saw that openness is part of the victory model. Openness to learn, openness to work with others. So these are, let's say, the four main lessons learned from these 3 years working together for the implementation of this small policy at the European level. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them during the FAQ part.
Thank you very much, Athanasios. Now let's move to the use case from the French public administration.
Thank you, Iwa. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. So my name is Thomas Guillet, and I've got a master's degree of computer science, and since 2017, I've been working with the national French governments and some local governments to work on delivering better public services, and mainly using digital tools and online tools. And I try to also leverage organizational tools that have been mainly used in startup or in new organization to apply those in the context of, or in some context of governments and administration. So as I said, I moved from a computational finance background, and my work, the common thread of my work for a government is really about information access. And as you know, information and knowledge is power. Finance is the domain of information asymmetry. And in my early career, I moved from finance to actually we can try to work and lower the information asymmetry and to focus on delivering better services that are very important to people that are in position of insecurity. They don't have all of the information to make informed decision. And I thought that working on that aspect was quite important. That's why I've been working mainly on what I called better benefit access and improving the access of benefits and allowances in France. So that's why I wanted to describe very briefly one of the benefits assessment tool I've been working on more recently. So this is a website that is online and it's pretty simple. And as you would expect, people are allowed to fill a form with a few questions that are dynamically created, a set of questions that is dynamically created. So we ask about their date of birth, their nationality, their occupation, how many people there is in their household, if what their incomes are, where they live. And at the end of that journey, we describe and we show them some benefits. So currently we compute, so you can go on the next slide and then on the next slide again. We compute eligibility and estimates for about 900 benefits. And those benefits are local and regional one. There is some complexity in the administrative structure in France. So we got regional, department, métropole, commune, and all of these levels have their own benefits, and we try to model most of them. But the thing is with that work is actually that the website I show you now is just the tip of the iceberg, because we need a lot of work. We need to hide a lot of the bureaucratic complexity that is specific to each of the benefits, and that's come up with quite a really difficult combination of criteria. So in order to be able to deliver such services, we rely on a tool that is called Open Fiscal. and I thought was really valuable to share today, because Open Fiscal is really a tool that could be used to create better legislation and smoother implementation. Indeed, you can go on the next slide. Open Fiscal is what we call a free and open source software that allow people to write rules as code, which rule as code is now pretty fancy within organization and government. Open Fiscal exists since 2011, and we've been leveraging this piece of software to model benefits, complex benefits, so that people can access these information benefits estimates through services like the one I described. This piece of software have been awarded by the OECD, more recently by the European Commission and even the EU, and the UN, sorry, the EU for European Commission, and the UN for being digital public goods. Open Fiscal was actually already mentioned 4 years ago on the first reports on rule as code, and how we could rely on rule as code to have a better legislation and more ready, digital ready to access and to be implemented. Open Fiscal is actually used in different contexts in France. It's already used by the French Parliament to estimate the impact of laws that people in Parliament gonna discuss and vote. There is a whole team working with Open Fiscal to deliver what we're trying to, what's the main topic of the your work group is about. It was also recently mentioned by the latest report as the main tool to try to deliver better legislation. So I wanted to come back to the last page of the simulator, where actually the first screenshot I was sharing is one benefits, but actually the list of benefits is quite important. And as the number of benefits grows, actually the problem is that benefits may not properly designed. They can suffer legacy issue, they can suffer change in the political government, in the local government, and the priorities. Some of the time they're no longer in sync with the present, and that's actually the starting point of the work I've done with the city of Strasbourg, and the work I wanted to describe as an opportunity to talk about a multidisciplinary team. So I've been invited to work with the city of Strasbourg with what I called the uniformization of price cap policies across public services. What that means is that there were a lot of the goal of such a change, such a reform at the local government, is to ensure that we actually manage to reach out people that do need support from the government. And in order to make those changes and make sure that we have that impact, we've got some constraints from a budget point of view. So we need to make sure that given a specific budget allocation, we have a good and a better public allocation. I talk about uniformization because actually 4 departments within the administration were invited to think about a new way and a uniform way to reach their people and adjust their pricing policy given the situation of the people. And as always, I think that every project in organization nowadays also try to bring new practices and new technologies so that people have a better day-to-day life as public servants or as residents and citizens. The context of that work was at the beginning a very small team. We were only 3 with very complementary skill sets. So there were Anne-Marie with the institutional network. She was the team leader and she had access to top management and what I call the sponsorship within the organization. And she also had quite a lot of domain knowledge because she's used to be a social worker. We also had Olivier, that had a very thorough and very important local socio-democratic knowledge, and was also able to get some perspective about what we do, how we do it, and if the figures we get are in the correct. He had a good sense of the rule of thumbs methodology, I would say. And then I was also part of the team. Obviously, I got some knowledge given the fact that I work on benefit simulator for quite some time, as well as rule as code. That was quite important because we were talking about reform in benefits, or with some price cut and logic around the prices. In addition to the context of who we are, we had actually a very timed constraint. We only had 3 months at the beginning to work on changing our prices. And the main goal we had was what I called a data-driven budget evaluation. And so that we can show that for each of these departments, the change in prices won't change their budget, but also we had to make sure that we are able to create prices that will be shared to residents that want to use and access to the public services. So if I go into more details about what we wanted to do and what was the situation at the beginning, here are the 4 domain and departments we had to work with. And the starting point is actually some of the domain and department are trying to have price cap policies, but they've got all of their specificities and they work very differently from one another. And it's quite difficult for people to know what's going to be the price for all of the services that the government and the local government provides. Some rely on family-focused income indicators. Some are focused on the students. So the idea was to get a single source of truth for the income of people and of their household. So if I go to August 9 of the same year, if I try to do a snapshot as of August 2023, we had some issues. Obviously, that's actually just how things goes. And we only received data very late in our project. So the issue with receiving data late is that the work we do rely on hypotheses and on even more hypotheses. It's like a pyramid of hypotheses. And as always, some of the hypotheses we do are correct and some of them are wrong. And here there was something quite important for single parent or single person that was incorrect about the hypothesis we were making. So we had to adapt quite quickly in a few weeks at the end of August to be able to present something to the political leaders and to make sure that we actually have results and have a proposition to make that need to be adjusted. But we had to show that something could be done to improve the situation for the resident and for the organization. So at that point in time, we saw that we could not deliver that quickly some results, some final results. So we had the opportunity to work 2 more months to adjust and to dig into the data and dig into the different departments for a few more weeks. So at that point in time, we restructured in a way the team that worked together, and we extended the team so that we could have access more easily to domain experts. So you can go on the next slide. So the way we worked we made that change is that we included experts for each of the departments so that we could have more knowledge within the team and we could have a better understanding of the institutional, but the operational, and also get some political sponsorship or knowledge and a better understanding of the context for each of the departments. The good thing is by the end of October, we managed to have a concrete proposition for 3 of the departments I described earlier. The only one that was excluded because the impact of the financial impact was too important, and we could not have a clearer estimates was for public transport. But for the 3 other departments, we managed to get approval for a new policy pricing. And I think it's when there are a few very fun fact, I would say, about what we learned is that so the 4 domain we were talking about the swimming pool classes and the price for the swimming pool classes, and so far there are only 3 prices for the class, and the prices are people will get a colored ticket given the price they need to pay, and we were told that on the field you could not have more than 3 different shades of pink or of red. 4 would be really hard from an operational point of view to actually distinguish which price it should be. So that was one, I think, fun fact about, okay, we could have thought about a pricing policy with 9 prices, but actually on the ground that could not be deployed. And I think that's one of the things that was quite important in this project, to be able to get operational feedback and adjust our proposition and our proposals given that constraints and those constraints. If I try to take away, to zoom out from what we've done exactly to what we learn and how we learn it, and what's important in multidisciplinary teams, the first thing is, for me, is that we do create shorter feedback loop, and really we work on what I call incremental improvement. As I said about the data at the beginning, we work on data without data, so we had to make a lot of hypotheses, and it's always okay to be wrong because we learn from our mistakes and our mistakes here. But sometimes what a multidisciplinary team allows us is that we can make shorter feedback loop and make a really quickly move from an hypothesis to a test to be able to get a better understanding of the situation. Again, about the structure of the team, I think it was extremely precious for us to add people from the different departments, because they had really specific knowledge that was very important. I gave you the example of the swimming pool. There was another example about the music classes that, for some really old legacy reason, was not appropriately priced. And now we were able to include and to change the situation, given that we had a shared context and a shared vision and a shared reality. So that was very specific to the work I tried to present for the work I've done with Strasbourg. I would like to zoom out again and talk about how we structure our teams and how we work at beta.gouv.fr, and try briefly describe what is a typical setup for a team within beta.gouv.fr. For me, we all are transdisciplinary people. Indeed, I do have technical skills, but I also try to have some other soft skills, such as empathy and care. And I think that's what we try to broaden when we create a multidisciplinary team. And actually, I think I really like the term that Professor Tang talked previously about transdisciplinary team. I think we really try to be in such context at beta.gouv.fr, because that's really important, so that people can share what they learn, but they can also learn a lot from their colleagues. And it creates, sorry, that was a bit fast, the slides. It creates, we try to create what I call small autonomous transdisciplinary team, where we manage to take to rely on other people on their knowledge, but also learn a lot from them. What is most of the time implied by our setup is that we also need a lot of sponsorship, and because such small team actually learn a lot, and they're gonna discover real problem. And if they don't have support from their organization, they're gonna suffer from frustration and not be able to have the impact they want to have. And the other aspect that is most of the time implied in our setup is that we have impact-focused team. I think this part is really linked to what we described earlier about the vision. We need to get people that share the vision, and that make a lot of the thing much simpler, because that's the main driver, what bring people together and what's allow them to actually be able to accept their limit, accept their error, and be able to be proactive about the work they want to do. The last point about the team, what I think is important to talk about, is that we try to create what I call self-reflective teams, because we want to create a human organization. It's about the openness that we talked about earlier, and about the fact that we need to lower the perceived risk of sharing a different perspective and a different point of view, because otherwise we won't have creative or innovative teams, and we won't actually change the reality. One tool we use, because I think it's really good to be hands-on here, we use Virginia Satir temperature reading. That is really great to start conversation within a team and set up an open environment so that we can rely and benefit from the member diversity. So how do we start? I think you could start, actually. I think pairs is a good way to start, because pair, as I earlier, I said that we as a person are already transdisciplinary units, but pairs, they are great to get a sense of how we can benefit from those transdisciplinary teams. Sorry. What's also important to have, pairs won't be enough. You also need some time to do things, some specific time, a specific problem is always good to have. And we also need, again, some sponsorship. Otherwise, without sponsorship, you get a lot of frustration and people won't stay in team or within your organization. And last but not least, if you're top level management, what you can do is try to do what we create at beta.gouv.fr. We set up internal code for interest to start solving specific problems using those tools and those great tools that are transdisciplinary team. And to finish, I just wanted to share what I think is a great example of what transdisciplinary can do. Is that's a screensaver screenshot of a computer at the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. And that's a global screensaver that invite people and make sure that most of the public servants within this organization are aware of a call for interest to tackle problem as transdisciplinary team. And thank you, and sorry for the slightly longer presentation.